I'm Greg DeRocher, and this is Chamber Web TV, focusing on election 2018 and the candidates from both Cambridge and Kitchener South-Hespeler. Here in our studio today is the candidate for the Independent Party from the riding of Kitchener South-Hespeler, Narine.
You got it, Narine, yeah.
Sookram, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. Come and visit us and talk about politics.
Absolutely.
And Ryan, I got to ask you this question because this is my favorite question to ask people. Why politics?
Why politics? That's a good question.
Of course it is.
It is a good question.
It's maybe one of the hardest ones to answer because most people say, I don't know how I got here.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so for me, I mean, I work in social services. I mean, that's what I do for a living, right? And so for me, getting into politics and getting in it for the right reason, it's the reason why I want to get into politics,
Yeah.
because I believe that when I use my skills to make contribution, I can make a bigger impact
Yeah.
compared to what I make right now with my day job, so to speak. Yeah.
so give us, who are you?
Well, my name is Narine Sookram,
Yeah.
by the way, and so I actually I work in social services. I work at a local nonprofit organization, LUTO, that is, in employment services, and I've been in social services for a long time. But I've always stayed connected in the community and have a passion to really allow people to maximize their potential.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I do, and it's part of who I am. It's part of my purpose, so to speak, right? And so. Yeah, so that's my day job. You know, I empower people
Yeah.
through finding their meaningful work, all of those pieces. I'm
Well,
a family man too, by the way. Just, you know,
Yeah.
I'm married, have
Okay.
a beautiful wife, a beautiful daughter, and I'm excited for this journey.
Good. Well, Luther Wood's a good member of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. We have lots of your folks attend our events, and we're always happy to have them there. It's a great organization that does a lot of great work. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce launched out on a campaign about 18 months ago, trying to develop a program for this particular campaign. And we came up with a program called Vote Prosperity. It's centered around 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars are strengthening business competitiveness, fostering job creation, building healthy communities, and improving government accountability. So we'll go through a couple of these 4, ask you a couple of questions surrounding them that are of interest to our members, but probably more broadly, even the public. And then we'll get you an opportunity to speak directly to the Kitchener South-Hespeler constituents. Strengthening business competitiveness is really important, obviously, to the Chamber of Commerce and its members. The electricity file has been a file that a lot of people would say has been badly managed. You know, the Green Energy Act didn't produce what it was supposed to produce. The government really has not a long-term plan. Hydro rates are going up so high that, in fact, the government was kind of forced to go out and borrow billions of dollars to try and give people a reduction, but really saddling future generations with those expenses. From your perspective, what would you do if you were elected as an independent member of the provincial legislature? What questions would you be asking the government of the day to do to deal with the hydro and electricity problem?
You know, this is not the first time I'm hearing this kind of question or conversation,
Yeah.
by the way. And so for me, you know, this kind of fix is not an overnight fix, right? And so we really have to take our time to kind of analyze this situation, you know, compare, we have to compare what people were paying in the past, compare what they're paying now, and to kind of to come to some sort of agreement to see what's worked best, not necessarily for the government, but for the people. Because keep in mind too, you know, there's always 2 sides to the coin, right?
Yeah.
So to speak, right? And so sometimes you have to invest, you know, before you can achieve, you know,
For sure, yeah.
achieve result. And so for me, you really have to. It's like I said to you, it's not it's not an overnight fix, but. At the end of the day, it's for me, it's not only me and you paying for all of those extra pieces. The way I see it, it's you know, generation after generation, and I think it's something needs to be addressed, but addressed in a way where it wouldn't you know, make things worse than what it is.
Yeah, I think, you know, I guess basically, you know, you told me you have a lovely family at home.
Yeah.
You have a daughter. You know, do you think it's right that your daughter's not only going to have to pay for your indebtedness, but she's also going to have to probably contribute to that, to upgrade that system in the future? Don't you think that's wrong? The government should be, you know, we should be making decisions today and trying to pay them off so that our children have assets instead of liabilities?
Of course, and I'm here, and I it is crucial that when we make this decision, because pretty much when we make this decision, it's not only affecting us, as I kind of mentioned earlier a little bit. It's affecting you know, the younger generation, like my daughter, and,
Yep.
and future generation. So pretty much in a sense, we are making decision for those people, and I think that's one of the reason why I want to be part of this whole process, not only to go and cast my vote, but really run as an independent, really, so where I can have like a better voice, where
Yeah.
we can say, you know what, guess what, you know, this is something we really have to
Yeah.
look into a lot more, for sure.
Bill 148, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but that's the Better Jobs and Fair Workplaces Act. A year ago,
That's correct, yeah.
the Premier came out with her announcement, really shocked the business industry, that not so much that minimum wage was going to go up, because we kind of knew that that was going to be dealt with, but that it was going to be going up so sharply in such a short period of time. But not only was that the problem, the other half of the problem, because that's only half the cost to business is the minimum wage. The other half to cost, to business were the other 172 regulations that were changed. Notice for
Taking time off.
taking time off and canceling shifts and all kinds of things like that. You're in the social service background, so you're probably very keenly supportive of a better minimum wage. I think, quite frankly, most businesses would say, yeah, they don't want their employees to live in poverty, that's fine. But they're capped by the ability to be able to pay.
Absolutely.
And so from the Premier's perspective, she says that right now she's out there challenging Doug Ford and saying, you can't reduce government expenses, billions and billions of dollars of government expenses, you can't reduce them by 6% without laying off 20,000 nurses and 20,000 teachers. And yet, a year ago, she imposed a 32% increase to businesses and called them bullies because they were laying people off.
That's right. I do remember that.
So, you know, the point of the matter is, if a small business can't absorb additional costs like that, if she thinks the government can't at least trim 6% off of their expenses, how is business going to be able to absorb a 32% increase? What would you be lobbying for on behalf of businesses to help them deal with this, really a crisis that's going to affect people?
You know, I work as a job developer in social services, so my main role is to work with small businesses and medium-sized businesses as well. So this conversation comes up all the time, right? And so making the decision to increase the pay rate is one thing, but what I think is that the businesses, they need a little bit more time to kind of really process things and put different pieces in place to really make it work, if that's
Absolutely.
that's the decision they want to make. For me, I feel as if like a decision was made, it was made, and you know, this is it, and this is how we're going to do it. It was very fast. Small businesses, I mean, and that's what I do. Like I said to you, I work with small businesses, so they didn't really get the time to really come up with a plan to really make it work. Because ideally, as I speak with small businesses or business owners in general, ideally they want to have employers to grow and stay and contribute and all of those types of things. But at the same time, you know, there are lots of different pieces to really you know, make a business you know, function and grow and so on. I'm a small business owner too, by the way, you know, and so I can understand both sides. But for me, as much as you know, we can never make enough money. I can tell you that, right? I tell you that much. But but at the same time, in order for businesses to be sustainable, I think you need continuous support. But you really need to have a plan in place and say, you know what, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and these are the steps, rather than say, okay, well, starting as of, you know, such and such, this is what we'll be doing. So I feel as if like the small businesses didn't really have much say. They just have to kind of swallow it and move forward.
Yeah, and I think the government kind of resisted sitting down with small business and trying to deal through it and make it appetizing for both sides. But anyway, that's for another day. It's done. It's done. We're still fighting for some of the other aspects that we think are important as well. Job creation. You know, you work with small business owners. You work in job creation, really, from your perspective. You want to see job creation happen. The apprenticeship system in our province is not the smoothest and most articulate system. It frustrates employers because there are limitations on how many apprentices you can have with when you have journeymen, all of that kind of stuff. The real part of the problem is that's why it costs you $120 an hour to bring a plumber in.
Of course, yeah.
We need more plumbers. We need people that are encouraged to take up trades. We think, the Chamber thinks the government should be leading that action and saying, let's connect more with business and understand businesses' needs so that we can address that in the post-secondary education system. Conestoga College does an awesome job with their programs and they're best college in Ontario. They're a fantastic institution. But we lack some leadership, I think, in fostering and moving forward. What are your thoughts on what you're kind of close to that action?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Yes. So I work in employment, and so I can contribute a little bit to that. And so for me, there's no question that we are going to need all of these skilled people for sure. There's no question about that, right? And so we need to continuously have more people train and get into different sort of trade. But one of the things I'm suggesting is that we need to really maximize the skills of our immigrants coming into this. Into this region here, and I think sometimes the highly skilled, immigrants that we have in this region currently I'm talking about, and that number is going to grow, by the way. I think that if we really take a keen look and realize that the resources and skill is already here, right? And I feel as if those skills are being overlooked for a variety of different reasons, and I think if we really realize that there's some really good opportunity here, that can start to really shifting a little bit. So that's going to be one of my main things actually, to really advocate for the immigrant community, and like recent graduate as well too, for two reasons. One, those citizens will get the opportunity to utilize their skills in their already trained field, but also we will get to blossom with small businesses and so on once we get to recognize that it's already here. It's already here. We just have to kind of dig a little bit deeper, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that all talks about job creation. We got the U.S. government reducing taxes crazy on corporations, making it really attractive for businesses. By the way, their unemployment rate now is down around 3%, ridiculously low. Everybody talks about trying to make Ontario the place to locate your business, but it seems to me there's so many stumbling blocks. Why would a business want to locate here? What would you do as an independent, and with your background, in working with small, medium-sized businesses and social services? How are we going to make Ontario a more attractive place to locate your business, especially manufacturing?
Yes, first of all, we can never have enough businesses in our city, we need variety, so to speak, right? So for me, we really have to make things affordable for people to start up a business in the first place. Let's say people want to move in here to do businesses. To keep in mind, like certain businesses are closing down. Like when it comes to certain, let's say retail, like we only have Walmart here, just so you know, right? And so we really need to really make it more attractive for people to kind of come in, and really assist with this whole process as well too. Because if somebody wants to start a business, right, if they're just left on their own and say, well, here you go, this is and they're not having that continuous support, business can fail. Yeah. So it's gonna be like like when I work with a client one-on-one, for example, right, I do continuously check in to see how they're doing. Yeah. Right? So for me, if I have if a city has an agreement with the government, we're going to do business or whatever the case may be, it's nice, for the representative or somebody to check in and say, well, how are things going here? You know what I mean? How are the funds looking like? Can we maybe offer something more so we can think? So have that continuous conversation. I think to see what's working, what's not working, and how we can make it better. It's like an ongoing process, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Building healthy communities is pillar number 3, and I want to talk about mental health. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce has come out, very, very publicly at making as a core principle of their advocacy work going forward that mental health in the workplace is really, really important. Cambridge Chamber of Commerce is adopting it as well, and more importantly, we're going out and we're doing our own work around it, trying to build a small business toolkit around mental health so that small business owners will have the means to be able to identify those in their employ who have mental health issues, but more importantly, giving them the tools within that toolkit to be able to give help to their employees or guide them and direct them, because we can draw a very straight and dark and black line between healthy, happy employees and productivity. And every business wants to have healthy, happy employees who very seldom take time off work and who are very productive when they're there. We also look at mental health as being one of the key instruments causing addiction and opioid use and homelessness in our community. And we think for too many years, everybody has, been trying to deal with some of these issues. And more importantly, at the other end. So you've got the mental health issue, which is kind of the beginning of the program. And then it leads to all of these other things. And all we're doing is really dealing with these other things out here, and we're not dealing with the root cause of mental health. What are your concepts or ideas around how can we as a community, and businesses more particularly, but how can government create the opportunity where we can deal with mental health at its root cause?
And so speaking of mental health, I mean, that's an ongoing conversation with us, because at Lutherwood where I work, that's one of the big things we do. We do mental health, we do housing, we do employment services. And so mental health, I mean, it's getting, I did a research and a study recently for a special project, and believe it or not, 1 out of 4 persons in this region here have some sort of mental health, just so you know. And I actually lost a brother because of mental health. And so for me, it's about educating people, and it's about recognizing, very crucial, recognizing that every person, and that, I think that's because I probably have social work background, recognizing that every person, regardless if they have mental health or not, has something to offer. In fact, some of my clients, I work for a different organization as well too, and they're all people with some sort of mental health, right? And so I think once we shift our thinking, shift our focus, and focus on their strengths, and realizing and sell those skills to the employer, you'll be amazed to know how things can change. Because my job as a job developer, when I help people with mental health finding work, once we're able to make a match, let's say, it's not only good for the individual, because that individual feels empowered, but also the employer. Because think about it, if you are going to a business, right, and when you look around to see what they have there, and when people start to see a variety of different people and all of these types of things, right, your business grow that way, right? And so and that's one of the reasons. Anytime I talk to a business owner, I educate them and say to them, do you, when you talk about diversity, in your plant here, right, or in your organization, like what does that mean to you, right? Because sometimes, keep in mind too, sometimes people look normal, right, but they get so much going on. But if somebody's openly saying that, I do have some challenges in life and so on, it is more likely other people will open up too. And then once you are aware of all of those spaces, then you can assist your employee, and then your business get better too, right? But the idea is to keep the conversation going. So thank you for asking that question, and don't ignore it, right? And we have to remove that stigma about mental health.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, so we don't want to say that, okay, well, he or she has, mental health, that, we don't want them here, those types of things. It's not good for the person, it's not good for the community, it's not good for any business. And that's, speaking of stigma, one of the stigma I want to remove in this election here is that I don't want people to think that we cannot win as an independent. I just thought to add that as well too.
Yes, exactly. And I think mental health is really, really important. It's it's an issue that I'm becoming more and more passionately concerned about, because as I uncover some stories in our community, and with individuals in our community, I'm finding that we can be so much more prosperous and productive if we can do something to help assist and eradicate mental health issues, long-term mental health issues. And I think we could do a lot to take away the problems we're seeing now with opioid use and addiction problems. That's where it leads to. People can't find a way out of their problem.
Absolutely.
So they turn to things that most people wouldn't turn to, and then they end up homeless and they lose
For sure,
everything
for
and
sure.
they lose their family.
Yes, and keep in mind too, like people, brought up differently in terms of the kind of support,
Yeah.
they've had around them growing up, all of those types of pieces. So it's important for us to work together to try to address those pieces. So we are kind of really, do some preventative measure for the future generation, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait, until you discover that somebody, has mental issue and they've had it for like, 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So these things need to be identified at an early
Yeah.
stage, so where we can address those pieces.
Yeah, you're so right about that. Thank you for what you do to help push that cause as well. Next one is the last pillar is improving government accountability, and there's we read about it all the time. I think the most common phrase that I read in the newspaper is government scandal. We're always hearing about that. So I don't know whether you've been following it. I'm certain that you probably have. But there's been a little bit of bickering going on for the last few years with the Auditor General and her report every year. She is actually appointed by the Liberal government, backed by Dalton McGuinty. But she is to act as an independent onlooker. She's supposed to have access to everything, which I assume that she probably does. And she's really to be a check and balance for the government. So, here's an individual in a department, they spend millions of dollars on the department, review this stuff, give us your best opinion, your best advice on where we're going right and where we're going wrong. And largely, for the last few years, the Auditor General has been ignored by the government. So recently, they talked about the $20 billion that they borrowed to reduce our hydro rates. The provincial government moved it over and said that's Hydro's debt, Hydro One's debt. It's really not. It's your debt and my debt. But they did that so that they could say that they had a surplus this year.
That's right, yes, correct, yeah.
It's not illegal. It's perfectly legal. So when the government
Looks
went
good on
out,
paper.
when the government went out and asked all the professional accounting associations across the country for their advice on this or their input on this, all of them came back and said, well, yeah, it's fine, because it's legal. The Auditor General is not arguing that. She's not arguing that it's illegal. She's saying she recognizes it's legal. She's just saying it's not right. What do you think?
Well, keep in mind there are smart people living in this province, so people are not foolish, so to speak, right? So people recognize all of those pieces. I clearly get what you're saying there. So I guess it's their way to play around with numbers to make it look good on their end, so to speak. I mean, that's the best way for me to say it. But when it comes to accountability, right, and stuff like that, and in fact, although I'm running as an independent, that's one of the things I have, in my platform, to have an accountability officer. An accountability officer, it has to be, somebody where there wouldn't be any sort of conflict of interest, all of those types of things. I'm not appointing you to kind of play games and stuff of that kind. And so, and it costs money, and so, and ideally, if the voters give it some really keen thinking, me going in as an independent will be a way for us to keep an eye on those folks. So I hope people look at it that way. So I mean, people are not stupid, as I mentioned, and so people will, people recognize those pieces, and I think. Though they have their say as to why they've moved it, or it probably look good, like I said to you, on paper, but at the same time, like as we said, somebody's paying for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You brought something up that had my mind going and thinking. Why don't we elect more independents? Because truly, we always say, the government comes out and says, well, we had an independent review of this. We have an Auditor General who's independent of government, operates and functions independently. There may be an advantage of having MPPs sitting in the House, getting all of the reports that everybody else gets, but being independents and saying, I'm going to hold the government to account because I'm here, I'm not going to win anything here. I'm never going to be premier because I'm an independent. I'm never going to be a minister because I'm independent. But I'm going to be the taxpayer's watchdog.
So I couldn't say it any better. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So there are lots of benefit when people vote as an independent, particularly this election, very important. And so if people were to vote, right, as independent, like, I mean, we only have one in the region as of now, but, in different areas, right? So in my opinion, it's nice to have a minority government. So that way we all work together.
Yeah.
But if we have a majority government, then they do what they want to do, and everybody else just follow along. But if you have a minority, we really have to, really
Well,
come together.
there's an opportunity where the independents, if there was enough of them elected, and you had a minority government, you could carry the balance of power.
Yes, and so that's another thing too. So if you have a minority government, an independent person, your vote can probably be the most important.
Yeah.
Right? You never know, right?
Yeah.
It's always there's that possibility.
Yeah.
Depending if it's minority and you can't make the decision on your own, then you will need people on your side, right? So that's when that's where the independent vote becomes a very, very crucial and become the most important. Yeah, absolutely.
It's always my pet peeve. I always talk to politicians when they get in, they're thinking about it, and I say, do me a favor once you're there. And nobody's ever listened, just so you know. But I've always said, when you get there, really, when we created this democracy, and we said we're going to elect people from the people to represent us in our levels of government. The whole concept is because the government's going to take money from us. And we want it to be a democracy, so we need different flavors of people from different types of societies to come and advise us and, work together on this. But the core responsibility of an elected official in Canada, especially, is to be a good steward of the public purse.
Correct. Yeah.
I give the government my money. The government can do whatever it wants with my money. However, I've always got you there,
That's right.
or my elected official, whomever that might be, who are really charged with the responsibility of making sure
Absolutely.
I get good value from that. It never seems to come out that way.
Yeah. Generally speaking, you're right. It doesn't necessarily turn out to be that way. But I think if people get into politics for the right reason, those are things that are very much possible because you're in it for the right reason. You're in it for the people. You're not waiting for 4 years to kind of make yourself known again. All of these types of things. And so I believe if the right people are elected, change is possible. And one person can make a change.
Yeah.
Like I've seen it. I've done it personally, and I'm hoping that people start to think and realize that yes, we have somebody who has done stuff in the community that we finally need to make those changes.
So if you get elected in Kitchener South-Hespeler, I'm going to come to you with one request right out of the gate. And I'm going to ask that you table a piece of legislation called the Honesty in Politics legislation. And that would put boundaries around a party that gets elected, that makes promises, and they have to deliver on the promises. So, it might not work this go around because everybody's promising all kinds of things that you and I know they can't deliver on, right?
Yeah.
There's no possible way. But down the road, if you were a leader of a particular party and you knew that there was a piece of legislation that was called the Honesty in Politics, you would really put some hard thought into what you promised to do because you would have to deliver.
Yeah, because when you put, for sure, like if you put pressure on people, right, so people will think before they start to come up with all these free popsicle, free hot dog,
Exactly,
and all these types of things, right? And so, so maybe we need something of that kind. Then.
Well, maybe we do. I don't know. It's something we should hammer around and see. I'm actually going to probably present it to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, but it's akin to politics today is akin to when I was in high school, and I can remember, kids running for student president and promising to put a pop machine at every intersection of the hallways. Everybody knew they weren't going to be able to get the administration to do that. That cost money. But it didn't stop them from promising it. They said, no, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And of course, they never ever did. And I think that's really the problem. That's why we've lost trust in our politicians.
As a job developer, as a person who works in social services, right, I never overpromise to my clients.
Yeah.
I promise the stuff that I'm capable in delivering, right? So I never overpromise. But whatever I promise, we make sure we get it done and get it done fast.
Yep.
And that's one of the thing with me. Once people get to know me, if people were to take the time
Yep.
to really Google me, just Google my name, Google all the candidates, they will be amazed to know, the kind of opportunity they have to vote for an independent.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, because keep in mind, we're not running for we're not running a leadership race here.
Yeah.
That's already done, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we are trying to select a candidate who can represent us here and represent us well. And one thing I can assure people, right? If I was to get elected, this riding will be an example for all the other ridings to follow, because people wonder how the heck did they do that?
Yeah, I
You
know,
what
I
mean?
know. It's incredible, government imposes legislation that makes business promise a covenant to their employees, and yet they don't want to be held account to their promises. And it's, it's a bit of a double standard.
For sure, for sure.
And, it's really unfortunate. Maybe I'm living a dream, thinking that someday we're going to get
Someday,
enough people that'll be elected that will actually be honorable like that. I don't know what happens. I've had discussions right here. What happens when people get elected? They change. They
People do
move
change,
to.
yeah.
I've had candidates. I have had candidates that are elected, that were elected, and coming to my door, knocking on my door, and I said, well, what I really want you to do is, I don't mind paying my fair share. If I've got to pay for something, then I have to pay for something. If there's a need, I have to pay for that. But I hate it when you're making my kids pay for something that I need today.
Of course,
And
for sure.
so don't. I don't mind capital debt because I'll pay that off and I'll give my kids an asset.
Yeah.
But I hate operating in indebtedness, and that's what the government does a lot. So, and every single one of them, when they're campaigning before they're elected, they all promise they'd never do. Oh yeah, I'll never do that. I will fight that to the. They don't.
For sure, no, and and keeping people accountable is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? And I think, and that's why it's important to actually have like a representative, right,
Yeah.
to really dig into these things,
Yeah.
right? Because if you, because keep in mind, if you don't have people independent representative in there, these things will be buried out because everybody will support each other, so to
Yeah.
speak, and it's kind of gone underneath the rug, right? But if you have one or two, like I said to you, independent people, well,
Yeah.
we can dig that up, and so we wouldn't let it slide.
Yeah. Brian, I want to give you an opportunity now to speak directly to the constituents of your riding in Kitchener South-Hespeler. So why don't you tell them why they should vote for you, an independent?
All right, so again, my name is Narine Sookram, and I'm representing the Kitchener South-Hespeler riding. The reason why you should vote for me, I actually have a track record to achieve results. And this is simple. This is not me saying to you. I will encourage you to take the time to Google all the candidates. And when you take the time to do so, the decision for you to vote for me as an independent will become very easy. So I encourage you to check out my website, narinesookram.com, for more information. You can touch base with me anytime. We are always independent. We have lots of support from all sort of people, and I'm always available to answer any question you may have. But I can assure you, this is a once-in-a-life opportunity. It is not easy to run as an independent, first of all, because I work full-time to begin with. But when you have a passion for something, you do whatever it takes to make it work. And I can assure you, if you vote for Narine Sookram on June the 7th, you'll be laughing.
Well, there you heard it, folks, from Narine Sookram, the only independent running in the region of Waterloo, and he's running in Kitchener South-Hespeler. We hope these videos have been a help to you to make an informed decision on December the 7th. We encourage you to reach out, talk to the candidates, and ask the questions on the issues that affect you most. And please vote on June the 7th. I'm Greg DeRocher for the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.